Welcome to the Customer Machine Podcast, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston and Yoav Ezer. Glenn is a psychologist and marketer whose companies have sold more than $30 million in consulting and has trained thousands of marketers across different niches and industries. Yoav is a programmer turned marketer whose companies have sold over $5 million in products and services. Together, they'll teach you how to systematically stand out, attract, and convert the best customers, even in brutally competitive markets. And now, here's Glenn and Yoav.
Well, say hey, this is the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston, and I'm here with Sergeant Yoav Ezer, otherwise known as the Conversion Machine. How are you, Yoav?
I'm extra great today. Thank you, Glenn.
You're extra great. How come?
I've been working all day, doing interesting stuff. I love my work, so what's there to complain?
You know, isn't it great when you love your work? I always think about how in the animal kingdom, play is actually practice for work. There's not this dichotomy. You look at a kitten that's, being really cute and trying to scoop things out of a bowl or attack a ball. And really what it's doing is it's practicing the kill. It's practicing what its job is going to be when it's older.
Yeah.
But when it comes to human beings, there's this artificial dichotomy between play and work. And it's not really supposed to be like that. What's supposed to happen is you're supposed to morph your enjoyment of life and the things that you played at as a child, and you're supposed to be able to morph that into your adult job. And most people don't ever get to do that. But when you know how to convert and sell the highest quality customers, the most valuable customers in your market, then you can kind of craft your own life, and you wind up not retiring and sitting on a beach eating Cheetos and counting the money in your bank, but really excited about working on the next project, which is how you and I both are. With that, my friend, today we're going to look at the very basics, and I think that both of us believe that this is not just a presentation for beginners, that it is well for advanced marketers to go back and review the basics from time to time, because with all of the pressures of business and the complexities of the web and the new software and opportunities and public relations and everything else that goes on, it's very easy to get drawn away from the basics of what really makes a business work. And often, if you review the basics, you'll say, gosh, I'm really neglecting this now. And so with that, would you, Sergeant Ezer, be willing to tell us about the architecture of a web-based business?
Of course. And what we're going to talk about today is not every possible type of web-based business. We're just talking about one of the common architectures. I think there are going to be a lot of insights, even if your business is slightly or a lot different than that. So I join you in recommending that people listen on.
Bring it on, man. Bring it on.
So
I'm ready for it.
Could you please move to the next slide?
Oh, I didn't know I had to do anything.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so this is very basic architecture for an internet marketing business. And what I propose we do is we go through the different parts of it, and let's see if we have any insight that can help the listeners increase conversions, create a better result within their own business. Is that acceptable to you, Dr. Glenn?
It's perfectly acceptable to me. The alternative is we could go through it and see if we can find opportunities to help them ruin their businesses. But I don't think they're listening for that reason.
We might want to do another episode that's exactly that.
It's not a bad idea, actually, because sometimes if you flip the problem on its head, you come up with really creative solutions. So, but let's go. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to start with the paid traffic, otherwise known as advertising. And I'd like to start there because it's the easiest form of traffic to get. And by easy, I mean that you only need to pay money to get people to see your stuff. So it's not, you don't have to work on 1 million blog posts and to create 1 trillion links and wait for 12 months to get some form of organic traffic from Google, and you don't have to create a viral Facebook campaign and hopefully that works and that gets you Facebook traffic. You just pay for an ad and get an eyeball to your page. So it's easy.
Could I say something radical about that, which
Sure.
some people get mad at me about? I think if you can't buy traffic, you don't have a business. I think that it's possible to develop income streams without buying traffic. I think that it might be possible to make a living without buying traffic, but if you can't buy traffic, it means that you have not figured out how to monetize the customers at the level that would allow you to compete on the world stage. And without being able to do that, you don't really have a controllable business. You're going to be at the whim of your joint venture partners. It's going to be your business is going to be reliant on how well they feel about the last thing that you did for them. You're going to be reliant on Google's search engine algorithms, and whenever that shakes up, you're going to be sweating bricks. But if you can buy traffic, if you can get the value per visitor and the amount of money you squeeze out per visitor up beyond a certain point so that you can pay for traffic, then you really do have a sustainable business. You can kind of turn on and off the faucet when you need to, and you can test when you need to. So I think if you don't have paid traffic, that you don't really have a business. What do you think about that?
I would agree on principle, but I actually know a few people that don't use paid traffic and have huge businesses. So that's kind of the example that ruins the rule.
I see.
But I'd agree with you that if you can make paid traffic work, it's a lot easier to profit from free traffic. It's also a lot easier to get free traffic.
So then maybe a better way to say it would be every business should have the goal of being able to sustain paid traffic.
Exactly.
And maybe you can have a business to that point, but that's where you want to point your compass. That's where true north is.
Right, because to make paid traffic work, you need all the components to function at a near optimal level. Like your opt-in rate needs to be high, your conversion rate to sales needs to be high. So you need to optimize all the different elements. And once you do that, when you get free traffic flowing into the system, the profits you get from the free traffic would be tenfold from what they would be if you only relied on free traffic and just, picked a small percentage of the possible profits. So paid traffic forces you to be extremely profitable. And that's a worthwhile goal.
Agreed.
Okay, so let's a few more notes about advertising. We can actually create an entire podcast just about advertising, not just one episode, but hundreds of episodes. But one model that works for me, and I want to give credit to a guy called Shane Hunter, who a few months ago reintroduced this model to me with fabulous clarity. And that's the advertising model that's called PAS, PAS. It's an acronym for Problem, Agitate, Solve. And especially with all advertising, if you start with the problem that the customer has, then you agitate the problem. You, in some way, make him feel that the problem is more acute, or you make him focus on that problem, and then promise a powerful and valuable solution with your advertising. That's a good way to get them to your website and to move on. And if you do deliver a valuable solution, which should be your sign-up bonus, then you can probably get them to sign up to your mailing list.
There you go.
Okay, one more thing about advert. Go ahead.
Just confirming that I'm with you. Keep going.
One more thing about advertising, and this is true especially for display ads. If you can make it not boring, and a lot of people just use it, they take an ad that they've seen, it seems to be working, they copy it and superimpose their own content on that ad. And that type of advertising, Me Too ads or boring ads that don't work, usually puts you at a huge disadvantage. You want to make the ad, especially display ads, very interesting. And what I try to do is I try to look, let's say Facebook, I try to look at the Facebook posts throughout, let's say, a week when I'm working on an ad that really capture my attention. And those are usually very interesting, frightening, something that really captures the attention, not your typical, download my book ad. So that's another tip. Should we move on?
I think we should.
Okay, let's talk about the opt-in page. 2 remarks about the opt-in page. One is that you need to really deliver that sign-up bonus, that ethical bribe that you promised in the ad. It has to be, even if it's possible, even better than what you promised in the ad. That way you continue to build expectation. And the other thing, and that's one thing I learned from you, and then reality showed me that that's an important thing to do, is to have the opt-in page congruent with the ad. So you can't deliver something else. You can't promise something new, something that's different on the opt-in page than the sign-up bonus that you promised on the ad, because if there isn't a direct logical line between the advertising and the landing page, you lose a lot of traffic.
And for absolute clarity, when Yoav is talking about that, he's talking about the teaser ad that brings them to the opt-in page. And we call this congruity or congruence. And one of the ways that we really figured out how important this was we looked at probably a few hundred markets over a couple of years in all of the coaching I was doing, where I would examine the advertisers who were able to maintain teaser ads high up in the Google paid search rankings. They were able to maintain them most consistently, and I would rank order them according to how consistently they were able to maintain that. The logic being that the advertisers who paid most consistently for advertising above the fold on Google, which is probably the most competitive advertising stage in the world, that they were not going to keep doing that if they weren't making money from those customers. And then when we analyzed if we would rank order all the advertisers in just about any market according to how much they were spending, you would see that as the advertisers fell down in rank, so did the congruity between the teaser ad and the opt-in page. And the advertiser who was typically at the very top had the most congruent, it wasn't a perfect correlation, but they generally had the most congruent message, so that the expectations that were set in the teaser ad were the same expectations that were on the opt-in page. Often there was the same imagery in the teaser ad that if it was a display ad that went to the opt-in page. We call that congruence, and it only makes sense. If you ask a girl to go for a walk on the beach with you and give her your number, and then she calls you and say, hey, do you want to go to a concert? Instead, she's going to have her expectations violated, and a sense of trust is lost. And it's the same thing as you're engaging the prospect. If you're enticing them to go for a walk on the beach, then when they get to your page, that should all be about, hey, give me your email and we'll go for a walk on the beach.
Exactly.
It's common sense, but you wouldn't believe how often people violate that principle.
Yeah, the only thing you're allowed to do is deliver more. You can, walk on the beach with romantic lights, or you can walk on the beach at sunset, which is even more romantic. But you're not allowed to.
Or maybe there's a concert on the beach, and it's kind of a surprise. But
yeah,
you're not allowed to.
Not allowed to take her on a hike to go out up to Mount Rainier for a 3,000-foot hike.
Yeah.
Good.
And you certainly don't want to just say, hey, let's go to a movie instead.
I think that's better than a hike up the mountain, but we can discuss this later.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so a few points about the opt-in bonus, or what we call an ethical bribe. There's a lot of marketers talking about how to create an ethical bribe, and what we've found is that the more valuable it is, the better the conversion rate is. Some people say you can have it be a very simple thing, and it can be a very simple thing as long as it's very valuable and it's what you promised with the ad. So it's not how big it is. It can be a 300-page book or a one-page cheat sheet, but as long as it's very valuable to the user at that point, to the visitor at that point, then you're going to have a higher conversion rate. Now, the second most important factor is, do the visitors believe you? So you can promise them an amazing book or an amazing cheat sheet, but if they don't believe that you can deliver on that promise, then you won't get the opt-in. So you have to come up with a way to prove your point, and we've discussed that. At least we've discussed how to create proof in a couple of previous episodes, so I won't go into that. And the third thing, the least important but still very important thing you can do with your opt-in page, is to give them a good, reasonable reason to act now. If there's a reasonable reason why they need to act now, for instance, if it's a webinar and the webinar is in 2 days, and if they miss the webinar, then they're not going to be able to get the information, then that's a reasonable reason to act now, and that will increase your conversion rates.
You know, the other thing I want to say about this sign-up bonus is that you need to evaluate the competitive context in which you're offering this. And so you don't want to just like pull an opt-in bonus out of your butt by the method of rectal extraction. And I owe Fred Gleek a debt of thanks for introducing me to that lovely image. What you want to do is say, what is everybody else in this market offering people, and how can I give them something better? And designing something better usually involves allocating some resources to that, whether that's time or energy or money to get that opt-in bonus developed. But this is a leverage point in the business. This is the point at which the customer gives you the first level of trust to say, yes, I'd like to have a relationship with you of some sort, even if it's a free relationship, because you really have to sell free in our world. There's a lot of free things that people can do, and the value of doing nothing and not investing their time in anything is always a strong competitor also. And so if you don't know the competitive context in which you're selling, and you don't come up with something better that stands out, your opt-in rate is really going to suffer. And this could be this could double the difference. This could double your cost per acquisition if you don't do it. It could half your cost per acquisition if you do it right. So the opt-in bonus is a really key it's a really key leverage point in the business, and don't just throw something up and see if you can get some opt-in rate going, and what at a low percentage, and say, okay, well, my cost per acquisition is X dollars. Make a really, really great opt-in bonus so that you stand out and you're putting competitive pressure on everybody else in the market, and then you could get an opt-in rate you can get a cost per acquisition per opt-in of X over 2. So that's what I have to say.
Let's just give a couple of numbers here. So let's say you have a kind of a Me Too opt-in bonus, and your conversion, your opt-in rate, your opt-in cost is $4 per opt-in. And then you sell 5% of the people that get into your mailing list. That means that your cost per sale would be $80. And if you sell a $97 product, you make $17 of profit for each sale. But if you really leverage the unique assets you have, you put in the effort, and you create something that's not only valuable but unique, and we've discussed this to death in previous episodes. You can go to the 2 episodes we talked about creating a unique selling proposition. They apply to an opt-in bonus as well. We've discussed creating mouth-drooling content. This also applies to opt-in. You follow that advice and you create something that lowers the cost per opt-in to $1. Now, multiply that by 20, the sale will now cost you $20 and you make $77 of profit per sale. So this is a huge leverage point, I agree.
And another analysis there could be the difference between losing money or being profitable. Like it might be costing you $120 per sale, and by having a cost per acquisition that's cut in half, maybe you can get it down to $90 per sale, and now you've got a little bit of profit, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be the difference between being able to continue to advertise or not, which is the difference between having a business or not. Right. And so, okay, I think we've driven home the point that your sign-up bonus is a real leverage point in the system, and that's what controls the cost of the relationship, so pay attention to it.
Good. Let's move on to the mailing list. I'd like to quickly go through the high-level concept we use to make sales by using email. Would you like to go first, Glenn?
I would like you to go first, Sergeant.
Okay, so as per my usual practice, before I begin, I'd like to reference my teachers in this. So the first one would be Dr. Glenn Livingston, who first taught me how to use email to sell stuff. Second one would be Terry Dean, who has an excellent product about email marketing. And the third would be Ben Settle, who really revolutionized the way I use email to sell. If you get a chance to work with all 3 of those, take them. Their advice works. I've tested them in various markets. It all works. Now, the first biggest takeaway I learned from Glenn was that you need to be in constant contact with your mailing list members. So if you mail just once a month, you're like the boring grandma that you have to call. Like, people only hear from you once a month. They treat you like that distant relative, that boring grandma that you have to talk to because your mom makes you talk to her. Sometimes the conversation is interesting. Most of the time it's not. You usually zone out when you start talking to her. But if you're in contact with someone 2, 3, 5 times a week, then one of 2 things happen. Either you get really tired and opt out of the mailing list, or you drink the Kool-Aid and you become a real fan. So what you really want to do is not just have a lot of people on your mailing list. You want to have real fans on your mailing list, because fans buy your stuff, read your articles, share your videos. They do all the things you want your customers to do. And just people on your mailing list, they don't react, they don't respond. So
there's one more reason. That your loyal fans don't complain. They don't hit the spam button. And if you mail more frequently and you get rid of the people who aren't your loyal fans, and your opt-in list is comprised of a higher proportion of loyal fans, then your spam rating goes down and you can actually get your email through, which is more and more of a problem as the internet matures.
Way down, which is surprising. When I used to mail once every week, I got a few spam complaints for every email. Once I started mailing every day, very quickly, like in a week, spam complaints just disappeared. There were none. So it's a good point. Okay, point number 2, entertain. You want to entertain the people on your mailing list, because teaching goes only so far. You only have so much to teach people. But if you entertain them, you tell stories, you make interesting observations, then the readers on your mailing list start reading your emails to be entertained, which is what what most of the population wants to be. They basically want to be entertained. So your fans start reading your emails more and more if you entertain them. And another side effect of that is that it loosens their logical grip on the conversation. They become more susceptible to your pitches, which is another great side effect.
Because they're having an emotional relationship with you, not just a factual, professorial student relationship with you.
With you and with the content. It's very interesting when you have a strong story, a very compelling, emotional story, then then you pitch your product. There's an interesting response where you get sales, even though the pitch isn't 100% logically connected to the story. Well, once you get people in an emotional state, you disarm their logical processing mechanism. Their objections are not as strong. They buy more.
Yeah. Hey, Yoav, I have an idea. I think there's an awful lot to go through here, and I think that we should break this podcast up into 2 or 3 episodes so we can really go into detail, because each piece of it is so important. Are you open to that?
Yeah. Let's just finish with the mailing list and stop there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, good. Okay. Number 3, pitch. You need to pitch with your emails. If you don't pitch your product, if you don't sell your product at the end of your emails, or if you don't sell your product on the website where you're driving the traffic to from your email, then you won't make any sales. And usually, it doesn't make sense for me to say this simple thing, but I've seen a lot of marketers just don't pitch their products at all. They might send 5, 6, 7 emails where there are no pitches, no selling, and you're missing on opportunities to sell, and it's a shame.
Well, the other thing I'd say about that, Yoav, and then please finish, is that if you don't sell at least, every other email or so, you're going to train your list that you're just a benevolent grandma or grandpa. And then when you do pitch, they're going to get really mad. Because I thought you were my grandpa. I thought you were my grandma who just brought me gifts all the time.
Right.
And grandma and grandpa never made me buy anything. They just bought it for me. So if you don't introduce that fairly early on, that no, this is a business relationship and I'm here to make money and give you value for it, then you're creating a lot of grandchildren, and I don't know how many grandchildren you really want.
Agree.
Yeah. No, I don't have kids, so I don't mind creating some grandchildren. But go ahead.
So, okay, last point, number 4, and it's a distant cousin to the first 3 points, is teach. So you want to teach something in your emails, but not a lot. And I don't think you need to teach in every email or in everything you send, because frequency and entertainment are far more important than teaching, in my experience.
Yeah.
But you do want to show that you give value in your email. So do teach, but not as much as you entertain, and keep up your frequency. And with that, I think we can finish.
Could I say a few things about email that we haven't covered?
Sure.
Okay. So let's talk about some common mistakes I see people making with email. You need to ask yourself what the biggest benefit of either the email itself or the target of the email is, and be able to condense that into the subject line of the email. And you need to add curiosity to the email too. So you want a big benefit and curiosity. One of the emails that I thought was most interesting was Terry had an email with a subject line, "The Dangers of Blogging Naked," and he teaches internet marketers. And if you think about that, it says, well, there are some dangers of blogging the wrong way, and what does it mean to blog naked? And I could be more profitable if I knew these dangers and I avoided them. And then he goes into a whole thing about what you should reveal and what you shouldn't reveal, like the dangers of blogging naked. An email that I wrote.
You had one that was the cockroach persuasion secret.
Yes, the cockroach conversion secret. And that was a story-based email about my college days where my roommate used to make money by eating cockroaches. And I would dare you to see that subject line and read the first couple of sentences without clicking through and listening to the story. So
that was great.
Because you're going to learn how to sell more customers, and we can link to that blog post. I bet some people would like to see that. You're going to learn how to sell more customers, and you're going to learn it in a really entertaining way. Why wouldn't you do that? Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is that I usually like to have a link, not always, but I usually like to have a link early in the email, because there are some people who will scan the subject line. That's what gets them to open the email, and then they're ready to go. They're ready to go click and see what else you have to offer. And so in the cockroach conversion secret, for example, I would have a link at the very top that said the cockroach conversion secret, click here. And that's another tip, is to make the title of your link the exact subject line that got them to open, on the theory that if that title got them to open, it will also get them to click. Yeah, that's really helpful. That's really helpful.
So,
okay,
where would you like to have an email early, a link early in the email, and when would you just put it at the end of the email?
Well, sometimes if I'm selling and I need to make a bridge to the page that I'm selling to, for example, we have at alphawolfden.com, we have a really fabulous offer, and actually all of you should check it out at alphawolfden.com. We have a really fabulous offer for marketers who would like our direct supervision at a very inexpensive price on a regular basis and would like to leverage our network. It's a very, very powerful offer for people who are already business people or marketers, like those of you watching this. So that's at alphawolfden.com. But where Yoav and I are about to market that to, I've got a list of 17,500 coaches, which I worked really hard to acquire, and we're about to market it to them. I wouldn't put the link at the very top there, because these people, coaches, are people who are more of the belief that if they just put out their certificate, that they already know how to coach, they already know how to run a business. All they need to do is put out their certificate and they're going to have a business. And it's not until a lot later, when they've tried and failed, that they become a business person. And so I would need an email that described to them why it was important to be looking more at the business aspects of coaching even before they got certified. And I would really have to sell them on that first before I could send them to alphawolfden.com and sell them on working with us as business mentors. Alphawolfden.com is not necessarily targeted to coaches. It's really targeted to marketers and business people. So I have to create the bridge first. I don't want them to click through until I've been able to sell that to them. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the last thing I'd like to say is that sometimes, or maybe you have this covered with the pre-sale content box, and maybe we're going to go over this next time, but I will often send people from my mailing list to my blog so that I can give them pre-sales content. And those are some of the best conversion rate visitors that I have. So it's not unusual for me to get a 10 or 12 or sometimes even a 15% conversion rate from blog visitors to a particular page, because that page was mostly comprised of visitors who had opted in, signed up for a phenomenal bonus, gotten into the mailing list, and then consumed this pre-sale content because I drove them to the blog to see this, like the cockroach conversion secret, for example. I drove them to the blog for that reason. And so they really are very late in the sales cycle, and they've had a lot of touch points. And it can be a really powerful way to convert people. You can also retarget them. You can have a retargeting pixel on your blog so that you know who those people are, and you can reach them on Facebook and send them back to the sales page. So there are all sorts of reasons why you might want to send people back to your blog or back to some pre-sales content. And now that I'm looking at this diagram, I see you were already going there, and so that was probably unnecessary. Maybe it's just a good teaser where we can leave them for next time. What do you think, Mr. Machine?
It's a great teaser. It's a great teaser, and we need to finish the first part of this episode.
We do, because if we don't, they're going to slap us in the head with a spatula.
Exactly. Good. So thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for your time and attention. For more information about the products and services we offer to help dramatically grow your business, please visit thecustomermachine.com. On behalf of Glenn and Yoav, thanks for listening.